Hello, Fountain here, and today I'm going to talk about a topic that maybe could be a little controversial, and all the more reason to talk about it. And today I want to talk about, why do criminals exist? Well, obviously there's a legal system and there's a law imposed and based on fear, but that part of the topic I'm going to save for another day. That's a whole other video of unpacking to be done so that we can understand that one some more. But I'm going to stick to, I guess, something else that creates this kind of matter in our society, and that is the idea of trauma. Now, obviously trauma can come in many different ways. Trauma doesn't discriminate between race, wealth, age. It can happen to anybody and everybody. And obviously there's a big difference between witnessing someone pass over in front of your eyes and stubbing your toe. I do understand that. However, either of those things can still create a trauma. Now, obviously if you're experiencing those things when you're young, between obviously the age of birth and anywhere sort of up to teenage years, those are obviously your most absorbent, sort of sensitive years, and they will definitely help shape how you're going to experience potentially the rest of your life. And with the stubbing the toe, obviously you're not going to remember so much the stubbing the toe, but you might remember the reaction in which you get when you are in pain, and then you go to maybe a parent or a family member or a friend and how they react to the way that you're reacting. And depending on how that is and what you experience, and especially if that's something that you experience a lot of, that can create a trauma in itself. I guess another example would be, this is definitely not my story, but say you're brought up in quite a, maybe a middle to upper class family, so you always kind of have all the material possessions that you need. If you want to go to a particular university, that's available to you, particular schools, never sort of materially go without. Whenever you've asked for something, your parents give it to you. And, you want a new bike, okay, here's a new bike. You want a new pair of shoes, okay, here's a new pair of shoes. And, this is not to put down anybody that kind of sits in this supposed, generalization. Your parents, they could be working really hard, doing a lot of hours to, be able to get the money, to be able to provide all these things. And part of their way of managing having children and their time management is, maybe if we just give them all the things that they want in regards to their material possessions, then they will leave us alone for a couple hours so we can do X, Y, Z. And that could be related to getting more money, or maybe they just need some time to wind down. And so they haven't created the space of actually being able to provide the child with the emotional or mental needs that they might need, which can lead to a trauma. Often when we think of traumas, we think of like death and poverty, and don't get me wrong, I understand that that's very much a very real thing. However, it can also be created in lots of different ways. That is an example. Another example is, I don't really want to talk too much about the scientific study, but that there has been some studies done where they will look at a very young child, so say a baby, and you can provide everything that that baby needs in the sense of warmth in the environment, shelter, food. But if you deprive that child of the simple thing of touch, if you don't spend any sort of emotional time or touch with that baby, it can still actually die, just from the fact of a lack of emotional connection and a lack of physical touch. And that just goes to show how much that sort of connection is very important, and it can still be very important throughout our culture. Now, obviously there can be extremities in that where there's too much attachment, but that's not really the purpose of this video. And so I guess what I'm getting to is you will find that most people that have been caught up in some kind of criminal activity have experienced some kind of trauma. And it's often not necessarily just one event, but it could be one event which then leads on to many other events. But it's normally a behaviour that they've experienced through a lot of their life. And therefore, having an understanding and a perspective and compassion for that supposed criminal could actually help. So I'll give you an example. There's a judge that I'm aware of in the States, and when that judge gets youth offenders, he will actually inquire about what is it that that youth would actually like to do. What's their kind of goal, or what is it the kind of things that they look up to? What is it that they feel like they want to do in their life? You know, maybe they want to join a trade school. Maybe they want to enter into a particular university. Maybe they want to learn another sort of skill. And so they will come to him, obviously, for some sentencing. Not by choice, obviously. But some could say, we won't go into that though, we won't unpack that part. And he'll go, okay, so I heard you like to do this. Is that correct? And they'll let him talk. Okay, well, I want to see you again in 6 months, and I want you to come back with XYZ, a particular grade, or to see that you've joined a particular trade school, or whatever it may be. It's not necessarily 6 months, but it's just a time frame which he feels is attainable for that person. So, that's a different form of dealing with, criminal activity. And in no way, shape or form am I trying to say that it's okay to murder someone. Absolutely not. This is just to give you a bit of an understanding of how we can help with this that's going on. And another example is the term, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called Ubuntu. And some African peoples use it. And I've heard of one tribe in which when someone does something within the tribe that they don't consider as part of like a healthy thing for their community, they will then surround that person for a number of days. And, in the English term, we would call it like affirmations. They would tell them certain things about that person to their face, and they would also have a curious way in which they would try and find out as to, why did that happen, what really caused it, to just see what they can do to ensure that obviously, that person doesn't do something of similar nature again, by giving them what it is that they need, in the sense of, if it's usually an emotional thing that they're feeling that they need. And then also, it's an opportunity for them to ensure that there's no one else in their community that's feeling that sort of similar way, and may also minimise the likelihood of someone else in their community of doing something like that as well. And with that kind of mindset of, that compassion, that understanding, that perspective, and that curiosity can help prevent, this happening in our own communities. It can obviously, if someone has done something, help prevent it happening again, in the sense of them doing that same thing again or something similar, or another person in our community. And the reason these behaviours happen in our community is because it's a reflection of something that's going on within our own selves, right? And if anyone ever does things like parts work, or looks into their own shadows, anything that you try to resist or ignore within oneself will keep rearing its head like, hello, and it can get worse and worse. And that sort of, what you resist persists thing. And the same thing can almost be said about those parts of our society if we keep sort of ignoring it and not dealing with what it is that's actually going on, it's only potentially going to get worse. And so, yeah, if we, instead of first jumping on the bandwagon of, you know, criminals being supposed bad people, like I said, I'm not condoning violence, I'm not condoning murder. And you start to see, okay, well, something's obviously really happened with this person. What is it that we can do to help this person so that this does not happen again? You know, it's not saying to people like, what you've done is okay, but there's obviously a lot of different ways that we can go about what we're doing than what we are at the moment. You know, I was recently reminded of beautiful Dr. Gabamate's work, you know, around addiction. And as you probably are, a lot of you are aware that a lot of people that are caught up in our criminal system are, you know, facing a lot of addiction in various forms. And, you know, addiction can lead one to do a lot of things. Sometimes the particular item that they're addicted to is also an illegal item, which is also another whole other discussion around law and what should and shouldn't be legal. And, you know, you can get into the whole thing of like, why do we not consider alcoholics criminal, but those that might be addicted to, I don't know, cocaine as something else. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack with this, and I'm obviously very much simplifying the concept that I'm communicating to you. But this is to sort of give you an idea of some potentials in which we could help our own societies, our own communities. And this is where there's a big potential to really make a change. Like a lot of other peoples that work within the legal industry that I speak with and that I know of, that's where they see the big shift. How we go about doing that, obviously, there's lots of different ways. Like I spoke about that one judge, but this is like one judge, and how many judges are there in the world? And it depends on the legal system. It depends on the nation that you reside in. But it has to start somewhere. And in some places there's more space than others to be able to make these changes. So, yeah. I guess it's also an opportunity, like next time you find that someone does something to you that obviously it's not okay, what is it that you can learn about that? Is it something that you can learn about yourself, something that you can learn about them? I'm not saying you need to help everyone that does you wrong, but it's just a pondering. You know, maybe you don't need to be the person that helps them, but maybe there's someone else that can help them. And by no means am I saying that, you know, if something very terrible happens that you should not, you know, call the police. It's not what I'm saying either. But yeah, it's a very interesting topic, can be very controversial. As I said, you're welcome to leave your own comments, your own questions in the comment section down below. If you want to discuss this more with me, please get in contact. Or we can, you know, discuss this openly, obviously, on this platform. You'll find me on other social media platforms as well. Those links are in the description box down below. And I will see you in the next vlog.